Hello, so I'm on again. I've still got this cold, so I'll only be on an hour at most because obviously I've got a bit of a sore throat, a bit congested. So talking for a long time is not the best thing in the world. I'm just going to flip this over. There we go. But yeah, hopefully there'll be some people on in a minute. That says there's 8 people on now. So yeah, for those of you that didn't know, the other CDV came and it works. This is actually a Victoreen model, where this one was the Electro-Neutronics one, whatever it's called. Electro-Neutronics Inc. Yeah, and this one's a proper Victoreen one. Some pros and cons about each design, but the nice thing at least is this one looks like it's been somebody's kind of repaired it themselves at some point, so it's actually got some newer components on it. Oh, I've still got my cold, Ernie, as I was just saying at the beginning, but you know, I think it's starting to go a bit now, but that's why I didn't stream yesterday, because I had a sore throat, you know, and all that. But yeah, for anybody that was interested, you'll see that the circuit board on this one is actually quite a bit smaller than the other one. And you can see that yellow bit there. I reckon that's a new bit, where the person's, you know, like retrofitted it, essentially. The interesting thing is there's actually 2 switches on this one. High voltage control and the calibration, whereas my Electro-Neutronics one only has the calibration there. No, Samuel, as I said over and over again, I have never done any sort of military service. So anyway, let me put that back into there, and of course this works. Also, because this one has a different style battery compartment, see, it's like a 4 and a 4 rather than all, or like 2 and a 2, sorry, rather than all 4 being on one compartment. You can actually take the one off there without taking the other one off to get at the zeroing for the Geiger, which is behind the screen. It's a little screw there. So anyway, let me put this back together. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the stuff the original Fallout games are based on. If you wondered why they had all the yellow and blue Pip-Boy stuff, it's because the US Civil Defense stuff was all this kind of weird colouring. So yeah, let's get that, there we go, in there. So this one's got a modern speaker on as well. And the nice thing with this Victoreen one, it doesn't pick up as much kind of noise when you're running it with the speaker. So if I show you, let's turn it on, put the speaker on, there we go. Notice that although the speaker's clicking, you can't hear like loads of whirring from the circuits. So that's actually much better on this model. Well, with brands, what do you mean? They're all like US government made things. They all had to meet the same requirements. The Electro-Neutronics one was fine until I broke it doing something stupid. So that's my repair job on that one. This Victoreen one is fine. I don't really know if there are any that are better than others. Yeah, doesn't sound too silly to me, Rich. The nice thing about this speaker unit as well is you don't have to have batteries in it or it flicked on. It does do a little passive click. I'll show you in a second. It's just it clicks louder if you flick it on with the batteries, which is quite cool. Because with a lot of these, obviously, you need batteries in the speaker for them to work if it's like an amplifying. It's the same weight as all the other CDVs, at least of the 700 series. Obviously, like the 715 is lighter because there's less inside it. No, these were civil defense. The US Army had a very similar style one at one point, but it wasn't exactly the same as this. The US one, like the Army one, was like a green sort of grey colour. This is quite a low range Geiger though, because if you look at the scale on these, it's in milliröntgen per hour, and the default scale is 0 to 0.5. So even on the times on 100, it only goes up to 50 milliröntgen per hour. I don't know, Norbert. It really depends on opinion. Like the Russians made absolutely loads in the Soviet period and still today. Although I think some of them during the Soviet period are better than the modern Russian ones, or at least there was a bit more ingenuity behind them. China's making some quite good masks now. Britain makes good masks. I'm not sure. It would depend on the thing, but I can get this to overload pretty easily because I've got some cool things to show you. So let's because this only goes up to 50 milliröntgen per hour, I can overload that. So let me get something. I'll just have some Dutch courage before I carry on. Sorry if there's any Dutch viewers and they find that offensive. Right. I've got some more extracted radium here. So I'm absorbing horrible amounts of beta radiation holding this in my hand, but at least in a test tube it's sealed, so I can't contaminate myself with it. That's just brandy I'm drinking, Daniel. Right, so let's first do it with the beta shield closed. So we're only going to measure the gamma radiation. So we're on the ×1 scale, as you can see. Background is 0 to 0.1 milliroentgen per hour. Let's put this up to it. Oh, do you want the speaker on? Right, let's go to ×10. Still doing it. Right. I'll flick that off because it is going to get annoying. You can still hear it crackling a bit. And with the beta shield closed, only allowing gamma through, this normally sits between about 10 and 20 milliroentgen per hour in gamma radiation. Now, of course, if I open the beta shield, it's another story still. So, yep. There's the probe of the beta shield open. Also, something a bit interesting. Most of this probe, you might be able to see from the two different colours there, isn't the Victoreen probe, because I prefer the probe on the electroneutronics one. I actually swapped it over, like, you know, took them apart, because this probe's, I think, got a better quality housing. Right, there we go. Right, now, here's the beta one. Overloaded. So this is too radioactive for this Geiger to actually measure. So, you know, that gives you an idea of what I'm holding in my hand, which I probably shouldn't be, but I find it interesting. So what I'm going to do without further ado is put this in a case. If you want to see something interesting with this, though, actually, before I put this away, let's get the Geiger counter Hype sent me as a gift. So thank you to him if he comes on in a minute. And you'll see at the moment that's measuring about 0.25 as background radiation. What I'm going to do is put this test tube on top of it there. I'll have to do it there because otherwise it's not going to balance. Let's see how high the numbers go up. I've got the alarm off, otherwise it'll get really irritating. It's already up to 5.82 microsieverts. I think it went to 300 odd earlier. 24. No. If I had the beta shield open when I tried it earlier, William, I think it was between about 100 and 150 milliroentgen. But obviously the problem with those sort of things is you move the probe slightly and the reading fluctuates quite a lot because it's quite short range. Yeah, let's see what it gets to, 64. And I'll show you some cool aircraft dials in a minute. I'll show you the one that's really good and in a nice intact condition. I'll show you the radium under UV light as well, because that's beautiful. Marie Curie found radium beautiful. Didn't end too well for her, but, you know, thanks to science, she did advance a lot. Which one are you talking about, Ernie? Do you mean a PMG on about the masks? But I think Hype said he's going to start selling those to people in the West, to me. So, tell you what, I'll make Hype a mod so it always lets his comments through, because he sent me loads of free stuff recently, so I trust him. There we go. And if you want to link anyone, Hype, to those Geiger counters when you said you're going to put your link on, do it, because the video I've done on them won't be live for a while, so I won't have that URL you want me to put on there. There's absolutely no point, because one, Norbert, I can't show them on YouTube anymore. Well, not on live streams because of their stupid terms of service changes. Yeah, no worry. But yeah, that works quite well. Let's check what the battery's doing with it at the moment. Let me just hold this. I'm glad these are actually watertight test tubes. Right, this is on 122. Let me just hold it here. Again, I'm holding it with my hand, so let's see if I get a beta burn. But 118, because you said the tube's about here. So is that 113? Obviously, I'm reading it mirrored on my screen, but it should be the right way round on yours. That's all right, Mike. Have I made a number disappear on there? Because it looks like there should be a number there, and there's not one there. Hang on. Yeah, there should be a 0 there, I guess, or something, and it's not displaying. Have I burnt a number out using the radiation? It's going down, which is strange. Tell you what, let me flick it off and on, and we'll see what happens, because it might be it's just because I've been running it well. I'll run it off the cable as well, actually. Because, as you've said before, this is an important thing to note for people, so they make an informed decision on purchasing. The problem with Geiger counters like this, and it wouldn't be a problem for most people, is that the batteries aren't shielded on them, and a lot of the electronics aren't shielded. Hype might be able to explain this better than me. So if you expose them to high radiation fields or high energy sources, they start fucking up quite quickly. Whereas, you know, things like DP5s and DP75s and all the military tech stuff are kind of shielded against high radiation. Right, so let's try this again, shall we? So if you want... Oh, I didn't want the alarm going off. Hang on. I want it on function 4, don't I? Right, so mode 1, function 4, micro receivers. There we go. Let's watch the number go up. I wonder if there's somewhere I can balance this so it will sit on there like that and I don't have to hold it, you know, just because of the radiation levels. Right, I'll tell you what, I can balance it like this pretty safely where I am. So I'm going to balance this here, and then what I'll do is partway through the stream, I'll move the webcam so you can see it. And I just have to do a really careful job of moving the webcam so you don't see the, what's it? The DAC guns on the walls, because YouTube says they're verboten now. Oh, if you want to see something funny, I've not finished cleaning it up yet. For those of you that didn't know about the exploding battery charger, it's down there. See the, oh, can you actually see it there? See the burnt patch on the wall? There. I'll go that way. That's where it exploded. It was gone. It exploded. But yeah, thankfully, I was able to put the fire out pretty quickly. Bart's meant to be doing either the M17 or XM28 picture at some point in orbit. I did see somebody bought a GP5 mug the other day, so thank you. That gives me like £2, or me £1 and Bart £1. But I hope you didn't, unknown Russian, because I'm not allowed to show them anymore. Because, well, I think it technically says handling, but yeah, there's a really weird change of things for their live, like, it's not for regular videos, but on their terms of service for live streams, you're now no longer allowed to handle firearms, you know, shoot a firearm, handle firearm on the live stream. So even though they're deactivated and under UK law, they're not actually firearms. I don't want to risk it because, you know, you don't trust the people at YouTube to know the difference. Mike's already done a video on it. Anyway, let's see. What is this meter reading? Oh, shit. I didn't want to drop that. It got to 110. Yeah, I did send a picture earlier where it got to 300, so I'm going to put this away now. But I think a lot of the time it depends just how much sediment is in one area, like closest to the probe. So let's put that away a second. Tell you what, I'll sit him on top of my other one and I'll see if it maxes out at 99.99. Right, so if you want to see the nice aircraft dial I got today. Here we go. British World War II knots. I guess that's speed, is it, for aircraft? I'll zoom in on that so you can see it. This is all nice and intact, so I don't have to worry about the radium coming off. Notice how none of it's chipped yet, which is pretty fantastic for an old radium dial. 14500, I think they're called. But it was, I think, down to a combination of the charger and the battery both. Oh, I don't want to strobe it. There we go. Right, so UV on the zoom ball and it's the brightest UV torch I have. Hopefully you can see the colour radium glows now. It has this lovely kind of green, pale green sheen to it. But again, the problem is on webcam, you're going to see more of the actual light reflecting back. But to my eye, that's like a really nice green colour. But yeah, so that's that. Anyway, it wasn't one I recognised the name from, Daniel. It was, I think it was probably one of the more support-based aircraft. It wasn't like, you know, a fighter or a bomber. From what I can understand, it was much more of, I'll look up the listing, actually. I don't think it says on the dial, because I think they use similar dials for various things. Let me have a look, hang on. So let me go on eBay and I will have a look on my purchase history, what the seller thought it was. But a lot of the time when people sell World War II dials, they don't actually know necessarily which plane they're from. So often it's a guesstimate. But this person was correct because it was a World War II dial at least. It says World War II RAF Hampden Blackburn SKUA 280 knot. So let me search Hampden Blackburn or Blackburn SKUA. Oh, so it was an air arm thing, fleet air arm. Oh, that's pretty cool. The thing is, you'll find with a lot of these aircraft dials, is that weirdly, if you get the ones from less known planes, like Spitfire dials are really expensive. If you get the ones from other planes, they're the exact same dials, often in better condition. Yeah, the bit you want to see. So yeah, I was talking to Hype earlier about how nice the needle movement is on this. What's it? CDV. So let's get him out again. We'll put him on 1x first. We'll have the beta shield closed so we can just measure gamma. So there's that. Hang on. Hopefully you can read that there. And then let's hold this up to it. So yeah, that's ×1 scale. Let's go to ×10. Pretty much maxing out again. I think the highest area of activity is if you get the probe over the sort of 822 knots and needle sort of area. Then there we go. Let's see what the gamma activity is on the ×100 scale. Again, it will depend a bit on the position of the probe, the angle of this. But yeah, very smooth needle movement on this. What if I hold it that way across? Is that a bit higher? But yeah, I'd guess between 5 and 10 millirontgen per hour. Now, if I open the beta shield, it's a different story. So there we go. Beta shield's open. I can actually feel electrical charge going through the Geiger counter while I'm doing this, by the way. Saying that, this is actually very good glass on this one. It blocks a lot of the beta. So give me a second. Yeah, and it's also apparently Britain used a lot of radium as well in the paint, whereas a lot of nations didn't. So apparently that's why the British and American planes from World War II, the dials are way more radioactive, because I guess the paint had a higher concentration of radium in compared to zinc or whatever else. Not good if you're looking at it or painting it. Right. So, right. Obviously, I'm going to be very careful here, and I've been drinking, so there we go. Not a good combination. Let's take this off and then look at the beta reading, because this is actually pretty good glass on here. It's really cutting down on the beta. On a lot of these I've had, it doesn't do that. But why that is, I don't know. It also depends on the obviously thickness of the glass. And so we're on the ×100 scale still. Let's get that up there like that. And I'm not worried about it flaking because this dial is in really good condition until I drop it, he says. There we go. Gotta love that noise. If you can't hear it, hang on. Yeah. Although I do prefer the other speaker, actually, saying that. Let me just pop this back on a second. The other speaker makes a kind of deeper clunking noise. So let me put that one on it. If I've got it in this room. I can't remember if I took it back in or not. But yeah, give me a second. I'll be back. Right, found it. So let's unplug that speaker, put this one in. I'll turn this on. This speaker, I don't know why, it might be because it's bigger, makes more of a clunk noise rather than a sort of these are the aftermarket speakers. The original ones were really bulky. They kind of looked like that, but they were about that big because they took one decel in them. But yeah, there's that speaker, and it's turned on. So what we'll do now is move the probe over. Actually, I don't think that's tight. Hang on. There we go. That's better. See, I like this speaker. I prefer the deepness of the tick. But anyway, let's go to the ×100 again. And I want to take the cover off again, so I'll be careful. He says. Right, here we go. Oh, it shorted the meter a second. There we go. I love that noise. But yeah, this dial is actually so kind of hot in the sense that, like a lot of these aircraft dials, they can cause this to start jamming out. It hasn't ever completely jammed on me yet, the CDV, this one, but it will still kind of, you know, do the bit where it sort of stops. But yeah, I really love that old kind of noise. Right. Before I do anything really stupid, let me put this down and recover up the dial, because I actually want to keep this in pristine condition, seeing as it's in really good condition. Yeah, I normally get these dials off eBay, Chris. It's a bit of a crapshoot whether you actually get World War II ones with radium paint on or not, because a lot of them end up being like 1950s ones where they've either repainted them or, you know, where people list 1950s and 60s stuff as World War II. But in terms of sort of, yeah, these dials, the prices can really vary and condition can really vary. But yeah, there we go. So it's old radium World War II dial we're playing. But yeah, this isn't the hottest one I've had out of all of them. What's the decimeter at? Let me just check this because I've been keeping this obviously in my box. I'll use the main light. 21 Rontgen, roughly. The hottest ones I've had were actually the smaller dials. And I think there was less paint on them altogether, but the reason was the smaller dials have all the paint, you know, really close in kind of a square. So the radiation's a lot more centralized. It's a lot more like a check source. Because say I get this cesium 137. It's a similar sort of story of this, whereas and that's mostly only going to be the gamma from it, and it's only 1/4 of a Curie. How much is what, Jason? The dial or the Geiger counter or the cesium? Which thing? But yeah, to give you some idea, 1/4 micro Curie, the amount of cesium 137 is actually a lot less active on the Geiger. Yeah, I will do. Good idea. Hang on. Right, let me pop that back. That's the thing I like about these check sources, at least. They're proper sealed ones, you know, like the safe, basically, check sources. Right, let's check then. I'll go to the ×1 scale. The speaker's on, so you'd hear it. I've got the beta shield open. I'll check my chair as well. Yeah, I think I'm clean. But yeah, so you can generally tell from looking at the condition of them, you know, which ones are dodgy and which ones aren't. That's, like I said, the reason I ended up taking the radium off of some of the older ones, because when they're in bad condition, or, you know, meh condition, what ends up happening is the radium will find places to fall out of the glass. The dial, that one was about 20 quid, Ernie. Most are 20 to 30 pounds. If you buy like really good condition Spitfire ones and things like that, they're like £100. If you buy ones from other RAF planes or like Fleet Air Arm planes that aren't as famous, they're generally a lot cheaper, and it will depend on the seller and everything else as well. You can get some really nice Cold War dials a lot cheaper if you're not really all that interested in the radium paint or that it's a World War II plane. But yeah, the World War II ones are about generally like anywhere between £20 and £100 per dial, depending on condition, what kind of plane it's from. Like if it's somebody just selling it because they want to make some money, or a business seller who specializes in aircraft dials. The Cesium 137, Chris, that is from Spectrum Techniques. Now, where did I put it? Back in my box. Good. That's where I should have put it. So, hopefully it will focus on there and it will say Spectrum Techniques. Although their website isn't called Spectrum Techniques. I can link you to their website. Hang on a second. I'm trying to remember what their actual website name is, and it's annoying me. Imagesco.com is their actual website name. So here we go. I need to bookmark this so it actually turns up when I search it. Cold War dials are often like 20 or 30 quid. I mean, it's going to depend. The bigger dials are generally more expensive, but like boost dials, things like that, £20. I think it's probably air channels, but I'll show you. I took the caps off and put them away. The tarry stuff is where I've had it against the lead in the box for shielding. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're air channels rather than electric current ones, because I can't see any connectors under there. What might interest some people, I've not got it handy. I'll show it in a video at some point where I show a load of the aircraft dials in one video. Yeah, it's true, Mike, but the more you get into it, the more you're like, oh, I need to raise the power. But yeah, what was quite cool is it came with like one of those paper dials, where like when they're taking out a service, they have like the service notes on it, which is really cool. I think it's the first dial I've had that's come with one of those. Most don't. Well, I've seen in some other videos, people still have like the paper, labels attached. Yeah, that's what a lot of people use them for, Richard, apparently, is like hot rod kind of, modding, where you get them to be dials for other things. Ernie, I will be on for another half hour, roughly. Now I've started having alcohol in me, my cold's not feeling as bad, so, yeah, I'll be on probably till 9 o'clock UK time. Yeah, I'll try and get the turn bank indicators working at some point. I've got another turn bank coming, which I hope is a radium one. Looks like a US World War II one, but regardless, it's 12 volts. So I should hopefully be able to power that off my 12-volt battery of croc clips. Yeah, like what you can probably see in here, Mike, just to show people, is see the lead in there? The side that's going to be closest to anyone has lead in. When I get more lead, I'll do lead all around. But yeah, the main thing is space shielding, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, the thing is, the only person I think I'm ever endangering, Mike, is myself, and that's a risk you take with all those things, isn't it? But it depends. Does the enjoyment you get out of it, match the risk kind of thing? For me, yes. But yeah, like I've said, the main risk, I think, is people not understanding, like distance. It's like double the distance, quarter the dose. Because what you want to do ideally is, you know, use a Geiger counter, ion chamber, or whatever around your check sources. So when you store them, you know how far away you have to be from them to be safe. That way you can store them really safely. Because look, what I'll show you, let me just get the aircraft dial back in here. I'll show you a compass in a minute if I can get out the thing easily. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll show you the compass before I put all of this back, because it's at the bottom, because it sits like a flush. So right, what I did, one of my World War II compasses came today, British Compass Magnetic Marching Mark 1. I've scraped most of the loose radium off, because the problem with these, the radium under the glass, that's absolutely fine. It's not going to come off. The problem is there's lots of radium they also put on it. Let me show you. So, and again, I've not even managed to get all of it, which is the problem. See, it's still a bit dusty there. I'll put the other light on so you can see. But yeah, it has like a big strip of flaky radium on these from there to there, which is obviously, it illuminates it in the dark. The radium under there, not a problem. The problem is that radium flakes off. So I've taken most of it off to put in the test tube. But be aware if you get these, yes, there's radium in them. To demonstrate that, I'll open the beta shield. Tell you what, actually, I'll put it on ×10 to begin with. I'll put the speaker on so you can hear it. The speaker is on. Good. Right. First, we'll just close this actually and take a gamma measurement from the outside of the compass. So there we go. Gamma shield, or like the beta shield's closed. Getting to about 1 millirontgen per hour. It was about, I think, 10 millirontgen per hour before I took any of the stuff off of it. But right, here's the interesting bit. We'll open it back up. Right, you'll see that there's at least 4 bits of radium on there. There's 2 bits there, 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom. It's like that weird orangey yellow color now due to age, but that's radium. So let's just see what that reads on there. About 1 millirem at the hottest area, less in the most areas. Right, anyway, let's see how high a reading we can get. Right, that's off the scale. Let's go to ×100. Of course, it's going to depend a bit on the alignment of where the compass is. But yeah, getting at least 10 millirontgen per hour off of beta and gamma. So yeah, there you go. Be aware if you get old marching compasses from World War II, radium paint, like lots of these things. So, you know, store it safely, whatever. So anyway, I'm putting that back in the box for now. And what I'm going to do is put the aircraft dial back in the box as well. And then I will demonstrate how, you know, you do get gamma coming out of these boxes. So, you know, what you have to do is, some other people have seen this from some of my other videos, is, you know, take precautions of where you store them and all stuff like that, so you're not exposing anyone. What I need to do, actually, I think, is get that a bit tighter so it fits back in. Or it might be my lens just moved a bit, lens shielding. Right, I'm going to chuck that other bit of, what's it back in? Radium. One of these has floated to the top. Anyway, let's pop you back in, sitting upright so you can't fall over. Pop this in. Let's get the lead to move out of the way. Get the lid back on. There's the flat. Oh, there it is. It's gone inside. That's why I didn't do it. Right. There we go. Right, that's that closed again. So, yeah, it's strange, isn't it? But it's interesting. Also, I've noticed with these, depending on which scale you're on, it changes the kind of tone of the clicks, which is quite interesting. So anyway, I'll go to ×1 scale, and I'll close this so it's only gamma, although I think only gamma would get through the steel ammo box anyway. So what we're going to do is, if I hold this up here so you can see it, hopefully, this might be a bit difficult. I'll tell you what, I'll put this on top of my DP75 so I don't have to reach as far. And then I can put this, I'll put the speaker back on, might help. So yeah, on ×1, the gamma from the outside is already like that, ×10. Of course, it's going to depend on which the hottest section of your box is. But yeah, the point is, what you need to do with these is make sure you store them, where it's not near anybody. Because the thing is with gamma, which I can demonstrate pretty easily actually, although I don't know if I can show it that well on the camera, but just bear with me because I'm going to do it from here, is if we have the probe this far from it, it's got to ×5, but if I hold it here like that, you'll see the ×10 readings a lot lower. Well, actually you can't because it's out of frame, but see if I put that closer, take it away. And it's that whole thing of time, distance, exposure. So yeah, the point is with these is when you've got check sources, don't store them close to people. That's the safest way of, like negligating. That's not the proper word, is it? Doing negligible. Can't think of the word now. But you know what I mean? Doing the thing where I'm just going to throw out check source across the floor and put it way off the stream. No, Ernie, because I can't show things now because of YouTube's terms of service. So no, sadly. Yeah, I've played airsoft before. But yeah. The point was, which I'll get back to, is I found, although you can, obviously I'd recommend both shielding and distance. Distance is actually a much easier factor to do compared to shielding. Like the amount of lead you'd need and thickness to reduce the, thing as much as range. It's called the inverse square law, I think is what they call it, because I was actually looking this up and using calculators for it to work out safe distances and then actually testing them in person. Yeah, the PNV57A requires infrared light. The PNV57E actually amplifies light, but infrared you can use as an illuminator. But yeah, it's always like the time, distance, exposure thing. So that's the point to get back to when people talk about stuff like this. It's always better to, make the distances further. Right. Wait for more people to ask me questions now. Depends what sort of dosimeter you mean, Hash. If you had one running, let's say you had a SOEX kind of Geiger type dosimeter that shows your cumulative dose on the digital thing. If you had that running constantly from a power supply, yes, until the tube wears out, I imagine. And assuming that you don't overload it to the point where you've gone over the dose. With dosimeter pens, the battery very slowly runs out over time anyway, and the more radiation they're exposed to, the faster they run down. That's basically how you measure your dose with them. With, obviously dosimeters when they're on a battery, no, because the battery will probably run out first. No, I tried that, survived, nothing. It's definitely not radium on that. It glows too well to be radium. Because basically, later on they found other things that glowed in the dark better. The thing is with radium is supposedly if you have a high enough quantity of radium, it will glow in the dark regardless of if light's charging it or not. Because it's radioluminescent, or whatever they call it. With modern things like, say, watch looms, they require light to essentially charge, and then, the longer they're in the dark, the weaker and weaker the light gets. Where with radium, apparently, it'll, when the radium's fresh at least, and the paint's fresh, apparently, they'll always glow in the dark regardless, because the radiation's making it glow, ionizing the air around the paint. Yeah, pretty much any light amplification, Ernie, night vision, always works better when there's moonlight and stars than not. Yeah, if you've got to the 200 Rontgen point, you have to certainly wonder why you're still sitting around absorbing that dose. I don't know actually how I'd burn it out, to be honest. I mean, if I had a really cheap one that I wouldn't mind running 24/7, I could. But the problem is you'd have to have it close to check sources, and I like to shield and put my check sources away properly when I'm not doing videos on them. So it's quite hard to do, really. Because the thing is, like, my DP, what's it, DPK5, whatever they're called, DKP50, the dosimeter pens that I keep in the ammo boxes to check the sort of level inside. The one the other day did get to past 50 Rontgen, where the particular one I had goes to 50 Rontgen, and then the quartz needle had gone like completely as far as it would go to the side, which would probably be like 60, 70 Rontgen. But with those, once they go off the scale, they don't do anything interesting. They just stick there because there's a thing to stop the quartz fiber, going off the thing so you can recharge it. With regular GM tubes, you're basically just going to blow something eventually. Well, if we go off the lethal doses of radiation, Ernie, if you get 500 Rontgen in one go, that's apparently, will kill 50% of people. 1,000 Rontgen will pretty much kill everybody. The thing is, you have to bear in mind with radiation is they think there's a lot of things to do with if you're exposed to it, the chances you develop cancers and other illnesses massively go up, even if it's not an immediately lethal dose. The VM4, that's not the VM40, it's the VM44. No, the VM40 isn't installed in this room, so you can't see it. You can see it if you look up the video on it. Yeah, that's cool. I have to remember what the PEQ15 is, but is that one of the Geiger counters? Or oh, the IR night vision thing. Yeah, cheers. I'll give that to Mike next time I see him. Sure, I can do that after Christmas at some point. Mike has some of those IR things as well. Like, not night vision, but he has the IR like hunting torches and all those sort of things where he gets sent them for videos. Hello, Gorian, if I'm pronouncing your name right. Well, if you're in the blast radius of a nuclear weapon, you're evaporated or destroyed by the blast. You're not. You don't have to worry about radiation. When it comes to radiation from nuclear weapons, it would depend on what the fissile material is in the bomb, I imagine, and if it's a ground burst, air burst, underwater burst, like underground burst, essentially. Yeah, because you can use the red dot with it, can't he, in the flashlight, even without the IR. Bit as well. That's cool, Waste Alona. Any idea what country it's from? Then somebody might be able to guess. But I know with Britain, they did the regular Mark 6 green that was crap because it was ballistic nylon, and the Mark 6A was the black one, which was good. Well, earlier, Magnus, I was showing my other one of those. Where did I put it? Over there. It's out the frame. The Victoreen CDV. I would love to get at some point, but I don't know if there's actually many of them that exist, unless you buy one that somebody's modified, or you have the skills to modify them yourself, and I only have one, so I'm not going to do it, is low-range ion chambers for gamma radiation. Because obviously where I've got the CV-715 there, the lowest range on that is 0 to 500 millirontgen. There's a video where somebody's converted one to be basically in the millirontgen range for all the multipliers, not the Rontgen range as far as I'm aware. So when you're on, like, let's say, you know, where it's like says 0 to 5 Rontgen per hour on the thing, and then you've got the multipliers, it's 0 to 5 millirontgen. So you've got 0 to 5 millirontgen. On the 0.1, obviously, it would be 0 to 0.5. And then on the times 100, it goes up to 50 Rontgen per hour. That would be 500 Rontgen per hour, wouldn't it? Because it's a CDV-700 that starts at 0 to 0.5 on the thing. But it was really cool because he was showing that you could, you know, get it to go off when you put over americium and things like that. Yeah. So what Hype said, basically, if you have an air burst, that's the most kind of stuff leveled by the explosion. A ground burst irradiates the most shit. Although, I think when they did the Bikini Atoll test, when they did Crossroads Baker, because that was an underwater explosion, I think that was even more radioactive. But yeah, basically, if it goes off on the ground or slightly under the ground, it's going to irradiate a lot more stuff than if it goes off in the air. It's one of the reasons Castle Bravo produced so much fallout, because it essentially was a ground burst. They didn't do it on a tower or like drop it from the air. It was literally a tank on the ground, essentially, because it looked like a big sort of propane tank, Castle Bravo. And they were really surprised by how big the explosion was, because they fucked up the mathematics or something behind how it would go off. The only rebreather I've ever actually used, person with like a Russian name or a Cyrillic name, sorry, I can't pronounce, was the Polish ATE1, which I did the video on recently. You can use that same scrubber unit with the IP5. The coolest looking rebreather I have is the IP4M, but I've never used that, and I'd only ever use it in a situation because, you know, it's an older rebreather unit. You know, if I really had to, sort of thing. My personal biggest weakness would be the fact I rely on prescription medication that wouldn't exist anymore after a nuclear war. Yeah, but I imagine things like salt, Ernie, and sand in the water can be irradiated, can't they? So if you had an underwater burst, there's lots of stuff that actually sits in water, especially seawater, that would become irradiated. Right, I'll be on 10 more minutes. So if anybody's got any interesting questions, ask away. I don't know if I'll stream tomorrow. Hopefully I will. I don't see why not, but I don't know what time yet. It's just going to be when I can fit one in, because I want to get a video film for Saturday, because at the moment I've been doing videos on Saturdays as well as Sundays when I've had a bit of spare time. A lot of people seem to enjoy those, so I was thinking tomorrow I might film a video for Saturday about stuff you would need to survive a nuclear war, and I actually don't think a nuclear war is very survivable. But it'd all be stuff like Geiger counter, dosimeter, respirator to protect your lungs, you know, from inhalation of nuclear material, that kind of thing. Okay, that's all right. Just try and mark it as stuff I guess you think UK Customs wouldn't charge you the most on. That's all right, Mike. I'll watch a film later then. Don't know what I'm going to watch yet. All right, cheers. Wow, survive. There's one place I'd love to do that in the UK, and that's Sellafield or Windscale, because the fact the government's put loads of radioactive shit there and they prefer you not to know that it's there. So at some point I'll go to a day out to Windscale and see if I can get some samples as well when I go out there. take a few Geiger counters with me and ion chambers and things like that. To be honest, I don't think the ion chambers would pick anything up, because often it's like, 10 times higher than background when you find something there, not, hundreds of times higher than background. But Hype's going to send me to do a video, one of like the modern Chinese military Geiger counters. When I get that and do some videos of it, I will do a bit walking around my local area, checking radiation levels, just to show it, other than check sources. With radiation, a respirator only really protects you from inhaling airborne particulates. So any respirator with like a P100, P3 filter on it's going to be pretty much the same. The thicker the rubber and the glass used in the thing, and glass is actually better than polycarbonate for this, will cut down on the amount of beta. I'm not wearing an Orient. I'm wearing an Orient, but I'm wearing the Orient Mako 2. I've got a Vostok Amphibia, that's in the drawer somewhere. But unfortunately, that's the damaged one where I can't repair it very efficiently because of what seems like a Soviet proprietary kind of screwdriver. That's a good idea, Survive, actually. Well, people in England can own guns, Mr. Ginge, if they fall under all the right legislations. I don't have any, and I don't really need any, to be honest, but you can own quite a few different types of firearms here if you go through all the right checks and everything. If you're asking why I use the M15 in a lot of videos, because for ages I had the M15 sitting on the shelf in a really convenient location, whereas the CT12 is in a bag with loads of spare filters ready to go. So because the M15 is handy, that's a lot of the time why I use it in videos, and the M15's got a really clear voice diaphragm on it. So if I'm speaking through the mask in a video, people can understand me quite well. I don't think civilians have much use for machine guns, to be honest, Mr. Ginge. I don't think even most Americans think civilians should have, like, machine gun, belt-fed machine guns that are fully automatic, because it just somebody could do too much damage to them. Was there a comment I didn't see? Because I didn't see one about X-rays that Hype replied to. Your best bet, Niall, is to probably go on somewhere like Palpax and buy one of the airgun replicas of a Kalashnikov, because they're a lot cheaper and easier to get than airsoft ones, because of how our laws work. I don't understand it, but Is the federal firearms license chunky for things like the what's it like? Because I know you can get machine guns, can't you? And there's special licenses for automatics, but there was some sort of assault weapons ban, wasn't there, by Bill Clinton or something that did all that? Yeah, double plus good. Hang on, I'll get my Newspeak dictionary out. I think I've got it in this room. I'll get that out just before I go off. Is it in this room? Yeah, I found it. I assume it's meant to be a telly screen, is it, on the front? Because it doesn't actually say 1984 on the front of the book. I haven't read Animal Farm in ages, saying that. If it looks like I haven't read this, I think it was because at one point I bought the book and bought the audiobook at the same time. Ended up listening to the audiobook rather than reading this version of the book, even though I've read, like, obviously this before, but not this version of the book. Yeah, if you haven't read 1984, it's a very good book and very relevant. So is Fahrenheit 451, and so is Brave New World. Because a lot of people forget Fahrenheit 451, but that's... Well, each Newspeak dictionary is meant to get smaller and smaller, because people have a need for less and less words. If they don't know the words, they can't voice their hysteria, whatever it is, or discontent with the government. That's interesting, Chunky. Didn't know that. Well, in the UK, it's okay to own, if that's what you're asking. Let me get... I'll get PAL Packs up. I'll just put you on the main page of their site, and then you can look for whatever you want on there. Well, I don't think Brave New World is really a utopia. It might be a utopia for some people, but, you know, dystopia and utopia aren't actually all that far apart with a lot of kind of, you know, like stories, are they, or predictions? What, 1984? Is that what you're on about, Mr. Ginge? George Orwell's classic about authoritarian governments? Big Brother is watching. The 1984 film of Richard Burton in and John Hurt's quite good, although it does kind of skip over some of the very important things I think are like later on in the book. Right, I bought the Bulgarian PG one years ago. I think it was probably about £30, both for the PG one and when I bought the PDE one as well. But I think it was roughly that. But bear in mind, I probably bought these like 4 or 5 years ago, so I really can't remember. I am going off in like 3 minutes, Ernie. Yeah, they rely basically on a non-stop war economy to explain why they don't have to provide goods for people. I've seen the film most people hated, like the 3-part film most people hated of Atlas Shrugged, but I've not read the book. I've seen the film of The Fountainhead as well and not read the book. Although annoyingly, if you go on IMDb, lots of people hate on those just because, Ayn Rand wrote it, and Ayn Rand must be some sort of evil bitch, not, you know, on the qualities of the film or the message itself. I think I probably preferred The Fountainhead to Atlas Shrugged, just because, you know, it was like one movie rather than watching 3 movies. The annoying thing as well with the Atlas Shrugged sort of trilogy is it's different actors in each movie, because they couldn't get the same actors for every movie each time, which is really off-putting if you end up watching them back to back. Yeah, it's just, I don't really find the idea where everybody has to take a drug all the time to feel happy. You know, all that much of a utopia. Yeah, if you had to live in one, I'd definitely rather live in Brave New World than 1984. But, you know, neither of them seem like good kind of places to live. I just answered you. I said about £30, I think, when I bought it. There's actually a really old movie of 1984 as well, of Peter Cushing in. That's quite good. But I would say the better version is the one that I think they made actually in 1984. It was released in 1984 with John Hurt and Richard Burton and a couple of other people who I should remember. And the soundtrack was done by, is it Eurythmics? It was one of those kind of 80s synth pop bands did the soundtrack. Only Russian book I think I've got in my bookshelf over there is, I'm pretty sure it is Russian, isn't it? Roadside Picnic. Most of the books I have are either history non-fiction books, kind of what are considered to be very important fiction books like 1984 and all those sorts of ones, like classics, or what was I going to say, things like Machiavelli's The Prince, Clausewitz is on War, you know, all those sort of books. You know, ones that are meant to be very important historical books for the time. A lot of times psychology books and things like that I read, weirdly, because it's quite interesting on knowing what goes wrong with the human brain and like why it works the way it works. But in all honesty, a lot of the time, I'm very bad at reading books. Like, I'll buy books that I think look really interesting and then I'll never get the time to read them because I'm too busy doing other shit that's, you know, I'd be far better spent reading. But cheers, Ernie. I've seen the film of Dr. Zhivago. I've never read the book. How many subscribers am I at now, apparently? 64.4k. Might be a while to 100k, maybe a couple of years, but depends really. When sometimes YouTube features your videos, you get a load more subs in a short period. Sometimes it's like 800 to 1,000 subs a month. Right, refer to the size chart. See that chart behind me there? where it's got the guy's face and they're measuring it. Look at that chart. If not, Google GP5 size chart, and you can measure your head and get the size that will actually fit you. Anyway, right, I'll go off now. It's been an hour. Thanks, everybody. This has been quite a fun stream, and of course, I've irradiated myself as always. I'm just definitely going to thoroughly wash my hands now before doing anything else. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the stream. I've had a good time, even though I've got a cold. You know, my sore throat and all that's not been too bad. And yeah, I'll probably try and get a video film tomorrow for Saturday at 5 PM. But like I say, it'll depend if I have time, whether or not I stream tomorrow as well, if I have time. Yeah, see everybody. And yeah, I'll decontaminate myself now. Yeah, so bye.